Welcome to Getting Geeky with Game Relief. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is sponsored by Tucker of Card Lords, who has a new game on Kickstarter currently, The Pirate's Flag, a capture the flag board game. We first heard about this game when the Tantrum House was talking about it before it launched on Kickstarter, and it sounds pretty fun from what I heard. It's Pirate's Flag is a dice rolling, card playing, capture the flag adventure. So, if I recall right, you're going down the river. From what Tantrum House says, you're going down the river, and you got to be the first one to get the flag, and then go back up the river. It sounds pretty fun. I really like their descriptions or whatnot. It is going for another 25 days. They end on the 17th of May. Definitely check out this game on the Kickstarters. And we wanted to give you guys a call of action. I don't know that we've ever done this before on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, besides asking you to join our mailing list, which we still do. So you can find out about giveaways and exclusive content over at GameReliefGo.com. But we would love to hear when you find a game or hear about a game over on the Kickstarters that you back. Could you do us a favor? And if you do, go ahead and send out a tweet that says, "We heard about this game and wanted to get it by watching or listening," I guess whatever you do, to Getting Geeky with Game Relief, like either a Facebook post where you tag us or a tweet or something. Just give us word, because we love to hear what the general consensus is. If there's a new game you find out you want to back on the Kickstarters, we would love to hear about it, and so we can see if we're doing a little good in the world. So go ahead and let us know, or you can email us or Facebook Messenger, whatever you want to do. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this great interview in which I sat down with Benjamin to talk about his new game that's on Kickstarter. I hope you enjoy.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Before the gods entombed themselves in their temples, the people of ancient Madagascar had spread across the continent. From the Masudi Mountains to the teeming sea, from the barren expanses of Hellenetian desert to the lush gardens of Vortain. Under the protection of the gods, culture thrived and expanded, but they lived without meaningful contact with other peoples due to the gods' decree of isolation. But the gods have left. They've sealed themselves in their temples and filled their sanctuaries with vicious beasts, searing fire, and toxic miasma. Centuries later, the chosen people stand on their own. They are trading with new cultures. They are building machines to make life easier now that they must fend for themselves. They are debating new forms of government and law. It is an exciting time to be alive, a time of blossoming ideas and frontiers, both physical and metaphorical.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me neither. But this is the story of an Atlas of Horizons RPG, a new tabletop role-playing game on Kickstarter currently, and we're lucky enough to have on the creator and mastermind behind this great game, Benjamin. Is that correct, Benjamin? Is that how you fall in line with an Atlas of the Horizons RPG?
That is me. Yep, I'm the sole writer. Yep, and the creator.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate it, Benjamin.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Now, before we get into that, because I know that's the reason you come here to talk to us about, but before we get into that, let's rewind a little bit if we could. We don't have to go back too far, of course, unless you were born into role-playing games. But how did you get started into the world of RPGs, Benjamin?
I started, as I think most people my age probably did, I started with Dungeons & Dragons. I had an old copy that was my dad's growing up. First played in 5th grade or so, me and my brothers and a couple of other family members, cousins and such from time to time. And I moved forward from there. I've played GURPS, Anomine, Exalted, the World of Darkness series like Vampire and Werewolf. But yeah, I've been playing basically at least once a week for the last probably 20 years. It's been a big hobby of mine. Missing occasionally, Easter and Mother's Day and stuff, but barring holidays, pretty much weekly for most of my life.
Wow, that's pretty good. So have you been a player the whole time, or switching off between that and a DM or a GM, whatever they call them?
Yeah, no, I definitely have experience with both. Right now, I'm actually in two weekly games, one of which I'm a player in, and the other which I am GMing. Just finished wrapping up a pretty long, probably 7 to 8 month weekly playtest of An Atlas of the Horizons, and we're taking a break right now playing Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, I have experience on both sides of the GM screen.
Okay, awesome. So, seeing how you've been playing for 20 years, have you noticed play changing at all with technology and whatnot?
Oh, absolutely. I think that like a lot of my group now uses like the online Dungeons and Dragons like character sheets and stuff. I don't personally, but I know a lot of people who do play like over the internet, and even just like simple things like having like a tablet or something. I think technology does make a huge difference, and also just changes because of the way that games have evolved. Not necessarily related to technology, but yeah, I think there's been a lot of cultural change and play style change over at least since Dungeons and Dragons first edition, which I first played.
So first edition, and now are you on fifth edition or?
Yeah. Our current weekly game groups are both fifth edition D&D.
Well, there you go. Minus An Atlas of the Horizons, do you currently have a favorite RPG? Because if I let you pick your own game, my audience might have me drug out into the street and hung.
That's tough. I think it's difficult in a lot of ways for me to compare games to one another, just because I think there are some games that do certain things well. I think that if you want what D&D does in a game, it's a great system. If you want sort of a lot of choices to be made, like tactical choices during combat, and that sort of generally, I think, more combat heavy play style. But then also I really enjoy, like, for instance, Chubo's Marvelous Wish Granting Engine is a recent game that I've picked up that I've really enjoyed, which is much less focused on sort of conflict and more sort of just narrative storytelling. So it would be tough for me to pick one favorite, because I think different games do different things very well.
Well, there you go. What was that one you just said you just picked up recently?
Chubo's Marvelous Wish Granting Engine by Jenna Moran. That came out, I want to say a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And I backed that on Kickstarter. It's a pretty good system. It's diceless, which isn't for everyone.
Okay, but say somebody hasn't heard of it like I haven't. What can you tell us about that system?
So it is a diceless system, which is not everyone's cup of tea, but it is. Each character has arcs, and they get sort of experience points for fulfilling actions and different scenes that play into that arc. And so it's all about sort of like resolving the stories rather than sort of like a turn by turn conflict, like something more similar to D&D or GURPS, for instance.
Okay, awesome. And when you said you've been doing this for 20 years, what kind of time do you put in? Is like an hour, you sit down for an hour or a couple hours, or how long do you guys sit down to play your weekly games or whatnot?
So usually right now we're playing probably 4 to 6 hours per session. There were times when I was in college where, we didn't have jobs, and we, had all of our weekends off, where we would play basically from noon to midnight every Sunday, the 12 hours a week. It was a lot of fun, but our schedules just don't accommodate that anymore.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that's pretty good. That's awesome. So the word on the street is you have a new role-playing game on Kickstarter, An Atlas of the Horizons RPG. What can you tell us about this new RPG, Benjamin?
So as I said, I've been working on it for a while, and it is a game that sort of focuses on a culture, a sort of a storybook, fairy tale sort of inspired collection of countries who are sort of coming into their own and sort of seizing control of their own destiny after the gods have not abandoned them per se, but have sort of sealed themselves away. And no one in the setting quite knows why that happened. Rather, there are theories, but Most of the sort of session to session play is about characters defending sort of one another and their civilizations and their ideals in a world that lacks that protection they had before, and they're trying to set up sort of new ways of life. New machines are being invented, new forms of government are evolving. It's very much a game about sort of the title pays homage to the fact that sort of horizons, as in what lies ahead, and it's a game about sort of facing that and exploring that in a fantasy world.
Awesome. So, what led to the creation or what the inspiration of an atlas of the Horizons RPG, Benjamin?
I'd say a lot of what motivated me. I've been interested in game design, clearly as someone who's been gaming for most of my life. I'm very interested in game design. I think that what led to this specific setting and this specific project was an intentional move away from a lot more sort of like gritty or edgy, maybe is the right word, role-playing games that exist now and have existed over the last several years have come out. I wanted something that was more sort of optimistic and still could handle like mature and complex thoughts and ideas, but was something that was approached them more positively. So while there are still, risks and their characters might die or characters might face real hardship, it's not sort of a setting where it's one wrong move and you're dead, like is the case in some more modern or currently popular games with a very sort of thin line between character life and character death. And I wanted a game where it had the sort of lasting effects of conflict and lasting effects of hardship without being, while focusing on overcoming that in a positive way and surviving it rather than sort of that darkness. And that positivity was what was sort of the backbone for me of this project.
Cool. So, how did you go about going from the idea to getting it hashed out or whatnot?
So it went through a lot of iterations, a lot of play testing, a lot of ideas that I came up with that I loved, and then saw them in play and I hated them. In the beginning, I definitely was mostly just sort of talking to my friends and bouncing ideas off them. It was probably, honestly, a year before we even played our first session, before I had a cohesive enough rule set that I could sit down and say, well, let's make characters today, rather than just like, what do you guys think of X, or how would you think about Y in a game? That journey was definitely sort of a very slow one.
Oh, okay, cool. And you said you had a lot of things where it ended up coming out in playtesting that you decided you didn't like while playing. What were a couple of those things that you had to scrap because they just wouldn't work?
So I think the one that there are two that sort of I was most bummed about because I had such high hopes for. One is the way that damage works in the game. I definitely wanted to approach the game. I didn't want to include things just because they were a thing that was included in role-playing games. I wanted to make sure that every rule that existed for a reason, and try to approach the rules from a fresh sort of set of eyes. And I had this sort of initial concept for how damage would work, where rather than having like hit points per se, there were thresholds of damage. So damage was still numerical, but it had to exceed a certain threshold, and that would inflict a wound, which would be something like a broken arm or a black eye or like a bleeding. And I had this sort of very like intricately worked out, again, before the first session even happened, intricately worked out rule set about that. And then seeing it in play, it ended up that some characters were like impossible to meaningfully damage. Other characters would like die at the drop of a hat, and it was just very difficult to sort of balance that. And so the game has something more similar to traditional hit points now. But I also do think that approaching sort of from outside of just saying, well, hit points are fine, led to what I think is a very cool damage system, where there are still those in-story wounds, like you could break your arm in combat, or sprain an ankle, or have a permanent scar. But there are still also sort of like points that are lost through that.
Okay, so per se, man, you were to sit down to have a battle or whatnot in this game, how does that look? I mean, how does that sound? This is a podcast after all.
So the combat system, which I like a lot, has sort of two main foci stylistically, and that is one, as I said, that damage isn't just lost numbers; those are represented by actual in-game effects. So, right, you might you might start bleeding; it'll obscure your vision, or you might twist your ankle; it'll slow you down. And the other sort of main premise is that turn order is not fixed. Within a given round, characters can act in any order they want, but any action you take on an unwilling or an opposing person doesn't get resolved until the end of the turn. So, say you and I were playing characters who were fighting one another, and you wanted to attack me and I wanted to attack you. We would just talk about that sort of in real time rather than sitting waiting for your turn. And then, because neither of us theoretically wanted to be attacked, the damage wouldn't happen until the end of the turn. So there's not a benefit to like shouting out your action early, because it's still all going to get resolved at once.
That's interesting. Now, do we both roll dice, or is there a non-dice system like the game you talked about prior?
No, it does use dice. In and out of combat, all actions use a single 12-sided die and a group of 6-sided dice. The 12-sided die is compared to your skill, so you want to roll equal to or less than your skill. The higher your skill, the more likely you are to succeed. And that 12-sided die just determines, like, yes or no, whether or not the action was successful. And then your 6-sided dice, you'll roll a number of them equal to your attribute. So, for instance, going back to the example of combat, if you were to swing a sword at someone, you would roll one 12-sided die and compare that to your fighting skill. And then you would roll, say, if you had a character had a brawn of 3, you'd roll 3 6-sided dice, and you would pick one, usually the highest one, and that would be your degree, which would basically say how much you succeeded. It's not just succeed or fail. You could succeed better, which might mean more damage, or might mean some other. It might use it to overcome an opponent's defense if they're defending. So the attribute and the skill both play into success, just in different ways. One is like a flat succeed or not, whereas your attribute will determine sort of how well you did, or if you failed, you would pick your lowest degree die to have the lowest degree of failure.
Okay, and you talk about attributes and skills and whatnot. Do you pick those, or are they picked for you, or how does that go down?
So there are 7 attributes, and they're the same for every character, and they are numerically ranked at character creation from 1 to 4, although they can go up as high as 6. So you'll have 1 that starts at 4, 2 that start at 3, 2 that start at 2, 2 that start at 1. Your skills, every skill has a skill base that is basically just like, if you're not trained, sort of your default level in that skill. And then you assign points to those at character creation. It's meant to be very fast. You basically just pick 5 skills that you have, and those each get a bonus, and then one gets a slightly higher bonus. But you're not like assigning on a point by point level, so that selecting your skills and attributes is designed to be faster because of that. You're not thinking how many points, it's just which skills do I want.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, so that's awesome. And so what would you say the thing you're most proud of when it comes to an Atlas of the Horizon RPG is, Benjamin?
I would say that the thing that I'm proudest of, sort of aside from what I've sort of mentioned, was the core motivation, which was a more positive outlook. I would say the thing that I am proudest of is that I think that a lot of the rules have done a good job making characters make meaningful choices. Coming back again to combat, I mentioned that most, like, the chances of a character dying are very slim. Frequently, if a character is in a situation of danger, they have a chance to escape, and there's a role for that. And depending on how they do, they might have to, for instance, reveal a piece of information to their opponent, or lose an item they're carrying. And so a character has to make the choice, like, well, is that an acceptable loss, or should I instead stay and fight and not lose that thing? Or another situation where I think that choice is, and sort of that player agency is highlighted in the game is in the magic system, wherein magi or spellcasters can accumulate more astus or magical power to cast more powerful spells, but doing so, each higher level increases the risk that the magic will backfire and hurt them in some way. So instead of just spending spell points or spell slots like in some games, a character has to really think, like, is it worth it for me to push myself this far, knowing that it might hurt me, come back and hurt me, not just an expended resource. And I think that those...
That's cool. So yeah, kind of like everything has a consequence, whether it be good or bad, I guess.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I think that I've really tried to put a focus on that from a design standpoint of characters making choices that will affect not just them immediately, but sort of the world.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So if somebody's listening and they like what they've heard about an Atlas of the Horizon RPG thus far, how much will that set them back, Benjamin?
If they wanted to pledge currently on Kickstarter for just the digital copy, that's $9. The physical copy shipped within the United States is $31, and that includes shipping. There's also, if someone is maybe interested but doesn't necessarily know that it's worth buying it for them, there's a $2 backing tier, which would get them the finished rules as written, which I hope to have distributed by August of this year. I think I'm on track for that. The body of the text is already written, and then there's a $12 tier for backers outside the United States that will be fulfilled through Drive-Thru RPG, because I just, being a single writer, don't have the resources to ship like large overseas packages to cross around the world.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And I know you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but when would they anticipate getting their product so they can start playing an Atlas of the Horizon RPG game?
I definitely hope to have the final digital copy, which is to say the one with all the editing and art and layout done by February, and I hope to at the same time. Hopefully, it'll be at printers already, and hope to be shipping it out by March for the physical copies. Most of what I'm currently waiting on, because the body of the text is written already, most of what I'm currently waiting on is my artist, my illustrator that I've hired, who is awesome. Her name is Eleanor Bartow. I recommend just a link to her email on the Kickstarter page. So I'm hoping that we stay on track with all that art and get everything done in time. She's been great to work with. I'm sure it won't be a problem. But yeah, theoretically, digital copies in February and physical copies a month or so later than that.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So, per se, somebody's we have a running joke on my podcast. Actually, it's never been verified, so it isn't science or anything. So we don't know if it's true or not because nobody's actually come back and told us otherwise. But per se, somebody's falling asleep and listening to us. It wouldn't be because of you or your game, your RPG. It would be because of me and my voice. They get tired of hearing me drone on and on. We're 3 weeks into 3 weeks done. Yeah, 3 weeks done in the month of April, and I've already released 61 episodes. So sometimes they get tired of hearing me drone on and on. But now they're suddenly jolted awake, Benjamin, and you have their full attention. Why should they take a chance on an Atlas of the Horizons RPG, especially with all the other great, I know they have board games as well as they had different RPGs and settings and all kinds of stuff on there on the Kickstarter. Why should they take a chance on this one in particular?
I would say the what I would consider to be the main selling point, probably to the average consumer, is that the game is very flexible. I think it's very easy to learn. The dice system I've found frequently when I explain it to someone, they seem a little confused by it. But as soon as they see it in action, it clicks. And so I'd say it's very approachable because of that. And I would say that the flexibility of character creation and of the number of choices that exist, both sort of mechanically and narratively, are worth the $9 for a physical copy at least. And if you want for the digital copy rather, $9. And if you want the physical copy, I definitely tried to price it competitively in that regard. It will be a full color physical book also, I should mention.
There you go. That's awesome. And we'll go ahead and make sure we leave the links in the show notes so everybody can find it there. Now, it sounds like you've listened to a couple of our episodes or whatnot, Benjamin, so that you might be prepared, you might not. But per se, let's see here. So the next portion of our podcast is called The Adventures in Application Acquisition, where we talk about an app, be it for a cell phone, a tablet, a computer, or even a video game. It doesn't necessarily even have to be related to RPGs or gaming for that matter. Is there an app you use a lot about that we can talk about for a moment, Benjamin?
There is. I actually was prepared for this from listening to other episodes, and I would definitely have to say the app that I use the most outside of like sort of standard messaging stuff is Duolingo, which is a language learning app. I am learning or reteaching myself German, which I studied in high school, as well as attempting to learn Korean and not doing super great, but I'm doing my best. Duo Lingo, Lingo. That's all one word.
Okay, now is that a paid app or is it a free app or?
It is free. There are ads, and you can pay to get rid of the ads. But I just used the free version. It is totally fine.
Okay, awesome. And so minus teaching you language and whatnot, what sets it apart, or what can you tell us about this app?
I definitely I enjoy that there are a variety of different sort of language exercises. So like each day you have a number of sort of drills to go through, and you can adjust sort of based on how much time you want to commit. And there's also each drill will have sort of a link to like a forum about it, and people can leave comments and talk about things they found challenging or confusing about that exercise. So it's not just purely learning, but also connecting with other people who are studying the same language as you're studying.
Oh, cool. And is it a set number of lessons per language, or it just really depends?
I am not sure sort of how the number of lessons per language plays out. As I said, I'm not very far in Korean yet, but there are definitely a lot for German. I've been doing 3 lessons a day. I frequently go back and redo lessons because I, just forget earlier words or grammar stuff. But I've been doing about 3 lessons per day and have not yet reached the end of the number of lessons it has. So I'm not sure exactly how many they are language to language, but there are a lot.
When did you start using it?
I had used it a few years ago. I took a break for a while just because I kind of fell out of the habit of using it. But more recently, probably a few months, maybe 5-6 months, I've been using it in the most recent stretch.
Okay, awesome. So per se, you own the rights to Duolingo, you called it? So if you own the rights to Duolingo, Benjamin, what would be one thing you would do to fix it or make it a better app?
I'd say the only thing, in my opinion, that it really lacks is some of the lessons it tells you sort of like how or like what a phrase would be or what a word would be, how you would word something, but not necessarily why. So there are times when, and for German, it's easier for me because I as I said, I took German in high school and college, but like if someone did not understand like when to use like different like articles because of like the gender of a noun, it would seem like there's very little rhyme or reason. And so I think maybe having this short, like maybe written lessons that explain why certain language rules work that way would be handy. But no, I generally think it's a very good app. As I said, try to use it every day. I don't always get my exercises in, but I try.
Awesome. Yeah, so there you go. So you heard it. We like to try to keep this be a green podcast. So if anybody ever is listening here that has anything to do with the app, you heard it here first on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, what Benjamin would do to improve it a little bit, but it sounds like it's a pretty good app overall. So that's awesome. Now, we don't want to keep you all night, Benjamin. I know it's late over there where you're at, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Minus coming there to your hometown to stalk you. How will people go about finding out about you or your game or upcoming projects or anything like that, to tell you the truth, Benjamin?
The primary sort of web presence I have through the game is the Facebook page, other than obviously the Kickstarter itself. But I know we are on Facebook. There's a Facebook page, and that's just at, I think it's just facebook.com/An Atlas of the Horizons, all one word. Or if you just search An Atlas of the Horizons, it should show up. And I do have plans to start to get a URL of an actual sort of website but I'm holding off on that for now. Just I feel like it would be better to do if I had like a company name, and right now I'm just writing under my own name. There's not like an organization I'm representing. So right now I would say Facebook is the best way to follow the project and to follow me. And I do try to answer any questions or any messages that I get in a timely fashion.
Oh, okay, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know we've been talking to you over the Facebooks or whatnot. Yeah, so we'll make sure we go ahead and leave a link into the show notes so they can at least check that out, especially the Kickstarter for sure. For sure. Yeah, so that's awesome. So yeah, we don't, like I said, we don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on, getting geeky with Game Relief, Benjamin. It looks like they have about three, at the time of recording at least, they have about 3 weeks to back this project. It goes till the 12th of May.
12th of May. Yep. Yep. And we are currently, it looks like $9 away from halfway. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, go ahead and at least check out the Kickstarter there. We'll leave a link in the show notes or whatnot. And yeah, so that's awesome. And if you want to follow us or anything we're doing here on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, you can go ahead and check out our website at www.gamereliefgo.com, kind of like Pokemon Go, but Game Relief Go. And yeah, so you can check us out there, and if you want to get your game highlighted, or you have an RPG or anything like that, you want to get it highlighted on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, you can contact us via the website. We have our email address, gamerelief@gamereliefgo.com, or you can go ahead and Facebook message us through Messenger, either Getting Geeky with Game Relief, search that in the search bar or whatnot, or you can go ahead and message my personal messenger, which is Blake Leafdy on the Facebook. But yeah, anyways, we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us tonight, Benjamin. It's been great.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
It's time for Kickstarter Corner. To begin now.
Okay, you heard her right. Yes, it's time for the Kickstarter Corner, in which we'll go ahead, if you've not listened yet, we'll bring you some great games that are on Kickstarter currently. We already told you about the first of this episode about the Pirate's Flag, a Capture the Flag board game. The Pirate's Flag is a dice rolling, card playing, capture the flag adventure, and this is for 3 to 6 players, and it takes about 30 to 60 minutes. So maybe about 10 minutes per player. I think that's what it says here anyways. Yeah, it looks like a pretty fun game. Definitely check that one out on the Kickstarters. They're going through, the 17th of May? Yeah, so definitely give that a look. And then also don't forget about Mobster Metropolis. Create your syndicate, rise to power. This one is pretty fun. We had the creators on of the game on the podcast a while back ago. And yeah, this was a fun interview if I ever saw right. This game is for 13 plus. So definitely check this one out. And you can become your own mob, if you will. And then don't forget about Dobbers Quest for the Key on Kickstarter. Yeah, this one looks like really fun. It's a deck builder, but it's also a board game. So you're actually playing the encounter cards down and making the things happen, as opposed to having the board be against you or with you or whatnot. You actually are the one creating it. There's a lot of awesome art in the box, and it just looks really cool. You choose your hero, you collect effects, you build challenges, you travel, and then you charge into battle. And there's alignments in the always green forest. And then you claim victory. And we can help them on this great campaign. Let me go ahead and give you a rundown and see what's going on here. It looks like they're about, a third of the way funded, and they have 26 days to go. They end on the 18th of May, so definitely check that one out, especially if you like deck builders or games like Clank or whatnot, different things. And then don't forget about No Escape. No Escape is a competitive maze building. Take that game for 2 to 8 players from Games. Definitely check this one out. We had Jonathan on a while back ago to talk about it. And this one goes through the 17th of May. So definitely go ahead and jump over to our links so you can find out all these great games and find out about them and see what you should be backing over on the Kickstarters. And then don't forget about Terminator Genisys. Ride of the Resistance. It's a cooperative 1 to 4 player action adventure game featuring an original campaign set in 2029 Terminator universe. They've got 8 days to go, so probably about 6 or so when you hear this. Going through maybe a week through Monday the 30th of April. So definitely give that one a listen. Well, not a listen. I guess you could listen if you click on their actual Kickstarter video, and then you can watch it as well. So watch it and listen, and just scroll down and see they got some awesome miniatures. Hopefully the gameplay is pretty stellar as well. And if you want a game that is both stellar as well as awesome and comes with awesome minis, you definitely want to check out Arena the Contest. It's a tabletop miniatures board game. So we weren't able to get this reviewed and previewed. I feel bad, but we did finally get our prototype to the table, me and Barbarian Leaf. And let me tell you, Arena the Contest tabletop miniatures board game is something you should add to your collection. I'll tell you that. It's an awesome game. It's a fantasy tactical combat miniature tabletop for 1 to 8 players with a cooperative dungeon crawler and player versus player team competition. We didn't get time to run through the whole entire thing, but like I said, me and Barbarian Leaf, we sat down to give this game a go. We were playing player versus player. I think he probably ended up winning. I didn't get obliterated, if you will, but yeah, it was pretty fun. You do need to be slightly able to read a little bit, as there are quite a bit of card text that tells you how your battle is going to go down and whatnot. There's a couple of videos on the internet, if you will. I would definitely check them out. Hopefully there will be a good how to play video come out when this game goes ahead and gets sent out, because I really want to know how to play it further than me just reading the rules. But anyways, it was really cool. I enjoyed it. I'd give it, what does Princess Leaf go? She goes ahead and says, we'll give it 1,500 million leaves or whatever. So I would go ahead and give it that much as well, because yeah, it looks really cool, and some of the miniatures and artwork is awesome. There's also a dragon in this game. When there's a dragon, who could go wrong? Not you. Plus, the gameplay is just awesome. If you're wondering what kind of interviews we're going to have on next week, you've come to the right place. We're going to talk to Jim, who is dealing with election night. Learn your way to the White House. It's a game night hit that teaches math, geography, and the civics of the electrical college. Watch how much fun these kids have playing it. So yeah, definitely check out their Kickstarter video. They got a bunch of kids playing the game, and they got 26 days to go, going through the 18th of May. And if you're in the DC area, if you listen to our podcast or whatnot, go ahead and make sure you listen. And he tells you where you can go ahead and check this game out on International Tabletop Day, which is coming up. And then, do you have a small child? Do you need a bedtime story, but you don't want to veer too far away from tabletop board gaming or RPGs for that matter? Well, you've come to the right place. You needn't fear any longer, because now we've got Beasties. It's pretend time RPG themed children's book. It's a fantasy role-playing game themed children's book that features adorable creatures, whimsical rhymes, and beautiful illustrations on the Kickstarter right now. At the time of this recording, when they had about 11 days to go, they're really only about $630 away from their goal, and they end on the 3rd of May. Definitely check this one out. I love the art. It is cute per se. So that's awesome. And then, what about, let's see, there's some other ones out there. Swords and Cells. Rewrite History in 1080. We had Jason on the show earlier this last little bit. And it's a Swords and Cells is an epic conquest and diplomacy game about leading your armies and fleets through medieval Europe in 1000 AD. They got about 6 days to go at the time of recording, so 5, 4, something like that. They end on Saturday, the 28th of April, so definitely give this one a check out on there. And they actually have cool things going on with shipping and whatnot, and it just looks like a really cool game. So definitely check that one out. The components are awesome, and they have some reviews on there. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. Undead Viking he really liked it according to this. And then, last but not least, we've got Dungeon Brawl. It's a customizable, free-for-all RPG board game. In this board game, your friends are now your enemies, vying for the treasure. Choose a class, create a deck, and destroy your friends. Your dungeon crawl has now become your Dungeon Brawl. Definitely check that one out. They go for about a week, but from what I heard, if I recall right, Table Flip Games will go ahead and flip around and launch this later on down the road. So I hope you can be able to be a part of history and going ahead and getting that great game so you can become a dungeon brawler, not just a crawler. Anyways, it's time for you to get on with your lives, us to get on with our lives. In the meantime, while you're waiting to do such, make sure you go ahead and sign up for our email address or our email mailings, whatever you want to call it. It wouldn't be for our email address unless you want to start going through my email. Of course, I'm always open to that. It doesn't pay a lot, but it really is rewarding as you get to look at all my junk mail. Anyways, I'm rambling, kind of falling asleep here at the wheel. No, I'm not never falling asleep at the wheel, and I just said a double negative. But anyways, you go ahead and get on with your lives, we'll get on with ours, and we will catch you all on the, you guessed it, flip side. But in the meantime, before you get to the flip side, make sure you go ahead and bring others into the geek fold, stay in the geek fold, and yeah, go ahead and get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others into geek fold is really what I'm supposed to say, is it not? Anyways, always go ahead and feel free to send us an email, message us on Facebook, or tweet something and say, or share something, and tag us saying, I found this game because of getting geeky with Game Relief. We'd love to hear about your experiences with that. Anyways, we don't want to keep you all night. You got to get back on with your lives. We got to get on with ours. So until the next episode that you hear from us, this has been Getting Geeky with Game Relief. I'm Game Relief. Game Relief out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.